A question I get asked all the time by people that are interested in philosophy is, where do I start? And I was actually online last night chatting to this really sweet Italian girl, and she was asking me for a reading list and, where should she start looking? So, Emilia and anybody else who might be interested, I have put together some suggestions for you. But before I do go into that, I did want to say one thing that I really think you need when you're starting out in philosophy, and that is just to lose the fear. I think that philosophy is surrounded by this really unhelpful mystique and respect, and for me, I just think try and ditch all that and relax. Some things I always tell myself are things like, it's okay to find the subject boring and even silly in parts, and it's alright not to understand everything because philosophers don't know it all, and your grandma is probably as wise as a philosopher in many ways. So to get going on the subject, I've recommended 4 books, and for me these just really opened my mind. The first one is called The Conquest of Happiness by this guy called Bertrand, and it's a really lovely book that shows us how thinking can help you deal with things in life that you can't control. And it actually says that a lot of our unhappiness comes from the way that we approach things. So for example, if you go into a relationship thinking this person's going to understand everything I do and I'm going to be permanently satisfied, then you're probably going to have more trouble than somebody who just accepts that being a bit unhappy at times is all part of life. The book is full of really wise advice from this philosopher who lived to a ripe old age and used his experience to try and save us some time. Another great book is The Consolations of Philosophy by Alain de Botton. Now, this book takes you through the life and work of 6 great philosophers. It's got chapters on Socrates, Epicurus, Seneca, Montaigne, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. In each case, de Botton asks, how can these philosophers help us with our lives today? So Schopenhauer says some really fascinating things about our love lives, or Seneca is the guy you turn to when you're feeling angry, and so on. The book is just really well written, it's funny and wise, and it's actually got some great pictures in it as well. I think when you finish it, you'll have a real basic understanding of the history of philosophy. A third title that I really adore is by Erich Fromm, and it's called The Art of Loving. This is the one that will really get you philosophising about relationships. I read it when I was 17 and it definitely changed the way that I look at relationships. Basically, Fromm says that love isn't the thing that movies and songs tell us it is. It's an effort to understand another human being, to sympathise and forgive them. Being in love for Fromm primarily means putting your own needs aside to enter the life of somebody else's. So if somebody does give you Fromm on an early date, it's a very good sign indeed. The last book I recommend is by Milan Kundera, and it's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Now, this one is actually a novel, but it's a profoundly philosophical one, and it looks at ideas from Nietzsche about fate, destiny and responsibility. The great thing about this book is that it's really gripping, and you'll want to know what happens to the characters and really care about them, but it's also quite thought-provoking and stimulating, and you'll probably finish it in tears. I mean, I couldn't speak to anyone for days when I finished it. It just left me so blown away and really melancholy and thoughtful. So those are my 4 recommendations for anyone starting out: The Conquest of Happiness, The Consolations of Philosophy, The Art of Loving and The Unbearable Lightness of Being. But one thing I don't want people to forget is that more than any book, philosophy is about an attitude. It's about not wanting to accept things the way they are. It's about questioning everything, asking why are relationships the way they are? How can we make politics better? Why is it that we look at money the way that we do, and what is a meaningful job? For me, a philosopher ultimately isn't just somebody who's read a lot of books or has a degree from an impressive sounding university. It's anyone with an open, curious and restless mind, and quite frankly, those are the people I love more than anything, and they are the true everyday philosophers. I think we need a lot more of them. A fascinating and deeply unmodern idea. What's even more interesting is how the ideas changed throughout history. After I was trying to sort of explain some of the concepts I came across on my journey as a philosophy student, and maybe